Coach, this is Jared MacDonald from the Daily News here in Bowling Green. Got the release last week, I believe, that you guys are planning on moving ahead with the season. I guess, what's this process been like for you as a coach, where really all sports we're at a point of uncertainty kind of heading into the fall?
Yeah, it's tough. We know that this thing here that we're dealing with, it's bigger than sport. It's something where the health of the kids come first. So we tried to navigate that without trying not to put too much emphasis on just the athletic side of things. Of course, I wanted to make sure they're fit. I wanted to make sure that they're ready to compete, but we wanted to make sure they're healthy first. And we just tried to do things properly and follow the protocol that would keep them safe. And we just waited patiently for Conference USA to give us the nod. But, these kids are very enthusiastic about getting to compete now that we know that we are. And but if they wouldn't have been able to compete, they would have still trained hard. So, yeah, it was a tough situation to be in, but, we managed it really well.
Coach, this is Nick from the College Heights Herald. My question is, what do you expect out of your runners ahead of going to Appalachian State? Because there's a lot of returning runners that are experienced. What do you expect out of them going to this first competition?
Well, we have a good mix of experienced kids and also newcomers. Of course, a lot of the protocol that we're having to implement now is reducing the travel roster just to the bare minimum, really. So it's been a guessing game trying to figure out who would be the right people to take. And then, I have kids that are also going through some little bumps and bruises. So we try not to replace them here and there. So it's still kind of a last minute thing right now, but I could tell you that the people that are going, they're expected to compete at the best they've ever competed at. So I don't know where that's going to put us in the placement, but they definitely are excited just to see what that is. And I think it'll be pretty good, though.
Coach, this is Jared from the Daily News again. In terms of your actual training leading up into Friday, I guess, what have you guys been able to do as compared to what you would normally like to do leading into a season?
Oh, to be honest with you, everything as far as from a physiological standpoint, we've done things like we normally would. It's just maybe there's a lot of times where they have to do some of it on their own, or we couldn't be in a big group. But, we all know, the great coaches know that cross country, it happens in the summer. So these kids are home, whether they're quarantined or not, or, in a big city, small city, they just have to put their shoes on and get out the door. They knew what needed to be done in order for them to come back fit. It was laid out for them, and they kind of took the initiative to do it. So just coming back, we just had to do things a little different as far as like how we approach practice, how we set up practice. But as far as from a physiological standpoint, we hit the nail on the head just like we normally would. So there's nothing that we're not kind of planned for. Everything we're doing now is something that was planned. We kind of just try to do things safely. But as far as the physical aspect of it, these kids are fit.
And what about for you personally, where you take over your position in January, become the head coach, and then it's kind of a wild ride from there? What's this been like for you personally?
You couldn't plan this one, man. This is just something where, you have to be ready for whatever in this profession, but you just don't expect to come at this time of year and then the pandemic comes a month later. And then leading up to, us going home and things shifting to where we're all virtual and doing things Zoom like this. The kids were competing very well. I had kids running massive PRs. And I did replace a coach that I felt was doing a pretty solid job. I said that before. So it was all about picking that ball up and trying to make them better, trying to push the envelope. And then, of course, coming in January is kind of tough in regards to recruiting. I was just at a previous college before, and I just wrapped up recruiting. So to have to go back to the drawing board and start recruiting from scratch again, that was tough, especially most kids are already committed. So I had to look outside the country. I had to get some kids from Australia. I had to work on some out-of-state kids and piece some kind of recruiting class together. And I thought it ended up being a very good recruiting class. And it just goes to show the potential that Western could have if we could have a whole year to recruit and there won't be any more pandemics. But needless to say, next recruiting class is going to be special. So, Yeah, it was a tough job to come in January, but and due to all the circumstances, but I would say it went about as well as it could have.
To kind of go off of that, you mentioned picking up some pieces from outside of the area. I guess who do you have really like high hopes for as you guys enter the season? Which runner specifically, I guess?
Well, it's hard to say that because they're all just performing well. And I know I'm not trying to give you just a blanket answer there, but I will mention some names. But I mean, even returners, there's kids that I just didn't expect to be one of my best runners or some of the kids that really step up. But I can't say I haven't seen this script play out like this before. It always seems to play out like this everywhere I've coached at. But to be specific, yeah, definitely a guy by the name of Casey Buchanan. He was someone who was a bronze medalist in the Australian under 20 championships in the 800 meters. He's a middle distance guy, but I kind of integrated him into the longer distance stuff. And every day I say, hey, if this is too much, we'll cut back. And, early on we were cutting back on a lot of the volume, and he'd say, coach, I felt like I could do the whole thing. If you'd have let me, I definitely felt like I could have done it. So then now we're at this stage where now he's starting to do the whole workouts, and he's able to be one of my front runners. So it's kind of a surprise where this middle distance athlete is looking to have a great cross country season. This is someone that'll definitely be a national level track athlete come the spring. But for the fall, I think he's going to be a big asset to the men's team. And then on the women's team, I have a young lady from Australia by the name of Zoe Manning, who she was a national champion in steeplechase, under 18s there, and very strong cross country athlete. She's training well. Biggest surprise on my women's side actually is a lady by the name of Rory O'Connor. She's a freshman who actually never ran cross country or track in high school. She's a soccer player. She ran 1 year cross country in 8th grade because her friends were doing it, and it was just like the thing to do, I guess. But she went to high school and it didn't matriculate. She just started playing soccer. This kid's going to be one of my top runners. The way she's running now, she probably would have been one of the, if not the top cross country runner in Kentucky in high school, which is just odd that she didn't even actually do it at all. So she's going to be someone that I could see being a national level kid in the next 2 or 3 years. But right now, she's already one of my top runners as a freshman, having never competed in it before. So it's pretty cool.
To follow up on that, how do you find a girl or get a girl like that who isn't running cross country in high school, and then how do you get her to come out and perform like that?
Well, I get plenty of emails from kids. Let's put it that way. Needless to say, I do, and I just have to kind of vet those emails. If I start talking to a kid, and when I started talking to her, and she said, she sent me an email saying, I play soccer in high school, but I want to get into possibly running in college. And here's my number, blah, blah, blah. So I texted her. We set up a time to Zoom. And I said, well, okay, well, what have you done lately that made you decide you want to run? She said, I ran a half marathon. And she told me the time she ran. I was like, oh, wow, really? You really ran that? And she's like, yeah. And I said, okay, when you go for runs, what kind of pace you run? And she's like, oh, well, I usually run about 7-minute pace per mile. And I was like, okay, that's pretty fast. Like, I don't have a lot of kids do that. I said, well, do you run like 2 miles when you do it? She said, no, I actually run like 8 miles. And I was like, oh, okay. So I started asking more questions about how she runs, and she still was really naive. She didn't know how good that was, but I knew how good it was. So I was like, okay, I think I got a spot for you. Just hold on here. Let me send you some training here, and we'll see how it goes. And she's just knocking it out, man. She's someone that just gets after it. Actually, Sunday, after a long run, she said, Coach, I'm like 2 miles away from my first 80-mile week. Can I go for another run this afternoon? I was like, okay, you can do. She pulled my leg to get her 80 miles a week. So, when you have a kid like that that's wanting to run more and they're excited just to be able to do the sport, you just kind of know that person could be good. So you as a coach, you pick up on those things.
Coach, Nick again from the Herald. So another question I have, you are new to the staff, and what's the say of the staff that has, kind of helped you in this transition? Like what have they done to, guide you through this time as well? Because, you couldn't do it by yourself, but I'm just curious, what are your thoughts about them, like kind of guiding you through this time, I would guess?
Well, yeah, when I got here, I was fortunate enough to get to know some of these coaches prior to my arrival. We have an annual convention in December where all the coaches in NCAA kind of meet. So I got to get to know them early on. gave me some background information on the program and kind of where they were hoping to take it. You know, Coach Chumley was definitely clear in his mind of where he would like to see the cross country team perform, and that was part of the process of just interviewing me and figuring out who would be the right person for the position. So Coach Chumley's kind of given me that kind of space to kind of spread my wings and be the coach I can be at. And I think that was some of the things that made my decision easier to come here. I've been at places where I knew there was potential. I knew that we could perform very well. I knew that I had a good program in place potentially, but we just didn't really have the wings to grow. We didn't have the ability to spread our wings and be the program we could have been. We had limitations. So here I feel like there's definitely been more of an open-mindedness about, hey, you need this. This is what it needs to be done to be the best, to be the better cross-country program. Of course, when you have a women's team that was 12 out of 13, you know that's not a place that any head coach wants to see their program at. So part of the process is like, hey, I know you could do this. I know you could get this team better. So I'm gonna just step back and let you lead the way and do the things that I know you do best to get this team better. And they've been very supportive of me and decisions I make. You know, recruiting kids from Australia or taking on a kid that's never run before. Like, these are decisions that you have to go with your intuition, and you have to go with things that you've learned from your past experiences. So part of being a great coach, I think, is also kind of knowing to step back and trusting your staff. So, and I think that's what we've had here. It's been great.
This is Jared again from the Daily News. I know in the release that Matt sent out last week, it said the schedule was going to be released at a later date, and that the status on kind of the championships was going to be decided later this month. Do you have any updates on that?
We're taking things week by week. There's been many meets that we have initially been entered in, and then they tell us it's postponed, so I had to scramble. Just like App State wasn't originally our first meet. So I don't have a whole lot of detail on championships. I know we will have a Conference USA championship. I believe it's still going to be hosted by the same school, which is UAB. So all those things that were documented before, I think they're still planning on doing them that way as far as for the conference level goes. But then that's about as far as we know it. And we always been kind of told that, hey, be expected. Things could possibly change. Just be open-minded to that. So we're just taking things week by week. Right now, we're just looking at App State. And then we're going to go from there. Our second meet is supposed to be Louisville, Greater Louisville Classic 2 weeks after that. And that's what something we're looking forward to, is trying to compete this weekend. And hopefully 2 weeks later, we'll be able to toe the line again. So that's how we're kind of taking it in this time.